Welcome everyone to Enlightened Masculinity. We are here talking about many, many different subjects, but really it's all going to theme around today is exact language and communicating on the positive side of things. You know, all things are dual. There's a negative, there's a positive. There's always a silver lining to every dark cloud. There's always a dark lining to every silver cloud. And we're going to give our opinions and give our expertise and, you know, give our research on the subject. And you'll probably find it very, very helpful. So tune in. Co-host, and I'm going to introduce myself right now first. My name is Yogi Chris, PhD. I'm the founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, the new path up to the same old mountaintop, top of liberation. Also have a PhD in the Normal Universities, but mostly in these last few years, in the upcoming years, I travel the world teaching yoga, many online programs, 3 podcasts, 17 different books, and, you know, 1,000 friends. And they grow more and more every day and better every day. And we're here talking about speaking on the positive side of things when bad habits come to surface. But this episode has a co-host. The co-host is Akash Intikatakam from Montclair, New Jersey. He's a biotech research analyst for the biggest drug companies and drug dealers in the world, and also is a registered yoga teacher, starting his yoga following there in Montclair, New Jersey, has Sunrise Yoga, many programs that he's a part of. And we also share a common teacher of Arash Sapar Di Bazar, who I have tattooed on my neck because he's done so much for me. And, so I'm very excited to have Akash here. We got some people on Instagram, people on Zoom, people on Facebook. And before I hand it over to him to check in with Akash, just make sure you can always, if you're catching the recording, definitely leave a comment, leave a rating. That helps us show up in the search results. You can catch all the links below of how to, catch trainings with us. Join our private Facebook group where we give free trainings, and there's links to contact us. And, if you're watching live and this does something for you, then keep in mind, sharing this on social media is a big way how we grow the message, and really find more like-minded people is through your participation and sharing. So that's all the announcements. I'll hand it over to Akash, and then we'll get into the podcast. So how are you doing today, Akash? I haven't seen you in like a week.
Hey, brother. How's it going? I'm my little brother. I've been taking care of him for the past day or so. So really, really good. It's always interesting. He's 11 years old. So it's always interesting to see life through the eyes of a younger person because you get to experience life in many ways and for the first time with them. So it's really, really cool in that sense. I've been working with him once every month, once every like 3 weeks, once every month. And I have him come over up in Montclair, and I'll have him spend a night with me and kind of do a training of some of the things that I've been learning with Vince, Arash, etc. So working on delivery and communication, working on storytelling, you name it, and really expanding his growth in that area, and an area that I would have wished to have had when I was younger. So that's kind of what I've been up to over the past 24 hours or so. That aside, continuing to grow and push myself in all ways, mentally, physically, and spiritually, whether it be through late nights and doing lots of studying, whether it be in field or book studying or online lectures, continuing with yoga and pushing myself at my absolute max when my body is probably cursing my spirit for why do you have such a spirit that's willing to go so far. And then, as I mentioned, mentally, just continuing to find my bad habits and break them. So that's kind of what's been up with me, brother. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I particularly I know I'll find a lot of value within it. It's something I continue to work on every single day. So what's up with you? Let's check in with you, see how you've been. What's been new on your radar?
Well, so much is new, and I got allergies right now. I'm about to sneeze. So before I talk, would you tell us, you said in-field. Some of our audience might not know that terminology. Would you talk about that? That means
yes, in-field, as you guys may or may not know, refers to, in the field of social dynamics or social arts, it refers to going outside and talking to people. So in-field really is outside of your home, and it's a practical aspect to it. So that's what we mean by in-field.
Got it. I know one of the exciting things that I'm kind of doubling up here is I made this thumbnail. Yesterday, I did a solo broadcast of the Enlightened Masculinity, and I had a bunch of thoughts. I was trying to stay focused on this one thought of like, what is an independent woman? I'm actually retitling it right now. So I created this interesting thumbnail that had like Wonder Woman on it and had me like with my hand in my face. Basically, the suggestion is, the implied communication is, where are all the independent women? Kind of, or something like that. It's rare fun. It's really exciting though. I wonder if I could share it here on the Zoom. Can I share content? No. Okay. Anyway, so that was an exciting broadcast. It was a new thing. It's been it's been slowly creeping into that on my YouTube. I don't have like the hugest YouTube following, but like really creeping into some of those like those topics that would really bring about haters. And it happened maybe 2.5 years ago. I was giving some videos on like leadership and men leading relationships, and really grabbed a bunch of hate from those. Since then, I hadn't really said much about it. Every now and then I'll say in a video, like something will trickle in. But then lately, of course, with the Enlightened Masculinity podcast getting broadcast, some of those videos are on my YouTube. And then I did a special broadcast with IMC Rooster. And we were really talking about male-female dynamics a lot. And so lately, I just know it's kind of creeping in. And then as I reach out to yoga studios and they go and check out my YouTube to see if the content fits for them, specifically for like physical yoga events, teaching of the physical yoga, I know that they're coming across a lot of these like podcast broadcasts, 30-minute, 60-minute videos with weird titles. I mean, Yuri and I have talked about like, lizard people, and you and I have I don't even know some of the titles that we have. But so that's interesting. It's really interesting to put it out there like that, and I'm going to retitle this. But yeah, so yesterday I did this like 30-minute broadcast on there being no such thing as an independent woman, and also no such thing as an independent man. That it's just an absurd idea. It's just absurd. It's absurd. It's just an idea to kind of help people that are emotionally wounded feel a little bit better about why they don't have anybody. And that's not actually what I said in the YouTube broadcast, but that's what I'm saying here right now. So that's what that is, because I know that feeling. I know what it was like to say I'm an independent man, and it was because I had no woman, and that's how I made myself feel better about it. And so yeah, I mean, there's so much new, so much new. It's just on another level, especially with the exactness of my word mathematics. It's incredible. Like we had a little bit of friction going between us because of missing the podcast yesterday. And, so we're going back and forth. Generally, I'm pretty lenient when people talk. And really, it's eventually you get so exact with your communication that you might push a lot of people away with it. And so there's a delicate balance between like being argumentative and being precise. It's almost like I approach it as if it were the precision of like drawing up a legal contract, or drawing up some kind of a business contract of like so that everybody is exactly clear on their responsibilities. There's no ambiguity. And kind of similar to you, working with your little brother, like me working with my girlfriend and her son, has really raised awareness around all the little loopholes in a communication that could be pried open. And then there's a rational or not a rational, but like there is the potential for rationalization of like an error or of a mistake because it wasn't spelled out clearly, kind of thing. And then you can just play aloof, and at that point you would just need to call the other person like a liar or call them malicious or something to get them to feel guilty about it. So it's like, no, the solution is within me. If I had been exact in what I was saying, then I could point to, well, hey, you committed to this exact communication or not. And so like we're having this communication, and so I find myself getting exact with it, and we don't need to talk about it. We can talk about it after. But I had just an incredible, in just some incredible moments of exact communication with my girlfriend, that just the mathematics of it, it was like, how do I say? It's almost like if you have like a math problem and you find the exact solution, and it feels like you just did it right. Like you solved it right. You carried all your numbers and, kept track of all your symbols. And so my communication with her, it was really around male-female dynamics and her behavior towards other men. And it's been a stepwise progress since getting with her. I approached the relationship it was the first relationship I ever got into saying I'm going to be with other women. There are other relationships where it came out somewhere in the middle of the relationship, hey, I'm going to be with other women. But this was the first one that from the very beginning I was like, do you still want to go for this? Because this is the way it's going to be. And even still, there's been like a dozen times that, man, we just really hit a brick wall when it came to my behavior, her tolerance, her buying into it, going along with it. What's really our future together? Like, this isn't like me getting it out of my system and then I'll be done with it. This isn't like my Vegas trip. Like, this is what it is. And, so each one of those times, each one of those 12 conflicts, or each one of those 12 really like roadblocks or obstacles to get through in the relationship, to be on the same page. We cannot move forward if we're not on the same page, because you'll be moving forward in your own mind where that destination is, and I'll be moving in my mind at that destination, and we'll end up somewhere far apart from each other trying to somehow come together. And, it's getting better and better. Every conflict, there's just like a new leveling up. Like, for example, this one, very, very little, just so the most minimal of voice raising. Voices raised just like none. I raised my voice like none. And there was really a patience and just like a persistence like on it. Like, it wasn't let any time go by and then let my emotions cool so that I can figure it out. I was emotional. She was emotional, but we kept it polite, you could say. And within about 60 minutes, it was fully resolved. Now, I want that to get down to 60 seconds. But within 60 minutes of communicating, and I felt really good afterwards. And I tell you what, man, for like 55 minutes of it, it sucked. 55 minutes of that communication, it was like there's tension inside of me. There's emotions I don't want to feel. I'm working through like, is this behavior flirting? Was that behavior flirting or not? And, constantly questioning myself, like, am I wrong? I hope I'm wrong. I want to find out that I'm wrong. I'm curious. Am I wrong? I was like genuinely curious. Am I wrong? And, but it turns out I was right. And then, and that rightness, such a blessing, because I've seen this so many times in myself when I'm around my teachers, especially AZD, where it's just like something said. And then I'm like holding my head like, no way. That was incredible. Like, I'm trying to like contain my mind in my head because my mind just got blown. This is what she was doing. This is what she was doing when the 55 minutes was done. Oh, she was like, sorry, with the headphones. She's like holding her face like she realized, she realized, and that made it all worth it. And then I felt very good. So that was a recent thing. And yeah, so, and I think that even plays in with the topic that you had brought up about what this podcast would be about. So that's kind of what's new with me. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, one of the things I figured it's kind of come up to me over the past couple of days has been the idea of, and this is something I've learned from Vince. This is also something you've iterated, I think, in Silent Flute in some way, shape, or form as well, but focusing on the things that you want to happen versus versus focusing on the things that you don't want to happen. Or in other words, putting your attention on what you seek versus and the incremental ways that you're continuing to grow in that versus on the things that you don't want or don't seek. Examples of this for me recently have been like Friday night. I wasn't feeling particularly social, and I had about a half an hour window of time before AZD mentorship. And so I finished yoga class. I left yoga class. I came home and I was like, all right, I'm going to spend about half an hour at the local bar right down the street. This is my little, it's my social experiments lab, if you will. I brought a book with me, The Greatest Salesman in the World, and I was just reading it aloud and performing it in some senses, like performing both parts and just being free, being totally freely open. I wasn't drinking anything that night, so I was standing in a particular location, and I was acting out both parts of a particular dialogue. I was with myself throughout the whole night, and as I was walking around, I was talking to myself. I was like being with me, like as if I was on a date with myself, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible. In the sense of I could see the eyes from some of the women sitting at tables or at like their locations, and and they were seeing so much like emotion, like so many different emotions going on, and they were like, but it was only me that I was with myself, so that I could tell that there was like, what's going on over there, and I hadn't approached any of them because I wasn't really, I don't know, I didn't feel compelled to in any way, shape, or form. But what I was focusing on in this particular scenario was all of the things that I did that were right. One might say that, oh, well, you didn't talk to any women, or oh, you didn't go any farther. But I could focus on those things, but that's not going to get me better in that particular. That's not going to help me. It's going to further put me in a negative direction. Whereas if I reframe it and think of the things that I did well there, I went out first off. I was social and I was being, quote unquote, being myself. I was comfortable with what I was saying to whom I was saying with. I was creating an energy, an aura around me that was larger than life and very interesting. So those are things that I did well, and it's important to focus on that. In terms of yoga, I showed up to yoga class. I did like these postures particularly well, and I was focusing on my drishti, my bandhas, and my breathing all during a posture. So versus, oh, I didn't do this particular part of the posture right, and I could beat myself up about it. It's in each of it. We continue to find things that we do well, and focus on those things versus the things that we didn't necessarily do so well, or we didn't do as well as we would have liked. So yeah, I don't know, any things, I guess, examples that you have of this, Yogi Chris, or thoughts on this idea.
Well, you use some fancy words there. You know what fancy words I'm talking about?
I do. Some of the yogic words, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I want to include everyone in the audience, make sure they don't feel left out. What are these terms you're referring to?
So I started with Drishti. Drishti is your gaze point or your point of focus. It's traditionally thought as where do your eyes go during a posture, but I also think there's an inner Drishti as well as to where you're focusing internally. It wasn't something I was taught, but it's something that I've kind of incorporated some of the learnings of AZD. And I really do think it's really important as to where are you focusing internally as much as you're focusing externally. So that's Drishti, is gaze point, where you're looking. Bandhas these are called energy locks or energetic locks, and I've been educated as to 3 of them. I guess there's 4 if you engage all 3. So you've got the Mula Bandha, which is the root lock right at the base of the spine. You have the Uddiyana Bandha, which is a couple inches below your belly button, and it's right around your stomach area. Then you've got your throat lock, your Jalandhara Bandha. Again, it's just like right around where your throat is. If you engage all 3, it's called your Maha Bandha, or the Great Lock. So those are bandhas. They're energy locks, and they're to shift the flow of energy from downwards to upwards. So it's instead of, I don't know if it's because of gravity, but energy naturally flows downwards. However, when you engage these bandhas or these energy locks, you push the energy flowing up the opposite direction and up the spine. So those are bandhas. And then the last one was breathing, but I mean, there's so much to pranayama or breathing that it's.
Yeah, I think people get the word breathing. That's a common word. Yeah, Drishti and Bandha. And cool. Yeah, so what was the question again, actually? Like my experience with
I guess examples of you focusing on positive things that you want to continue to, like, there's probably an area of your life where you're like, I'm not exactly where I want to be right now. But rather than focusing on the negative aspects of it as to, oh man, I'm not where I want to be right now, focusing on here's how I've gotten closer to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't know that I do it, actually. Maybe I could improve. I think that I focus on positives in my life, just positive actions and positive choices, positive things I'm grateful for, just positivity. But I'll catch my mind focusing on negative things. And so I'd redirect my attention towards positive things. When it comes to an exact thing that, maybe isn't going the way I want it to go, You know, I think I see what you're saying. Let me see if I can get myself into that state of mind. If there was something negative happening, then sometimes I'll focus on uh, some of the positives that came from it, or I'll use my mind as like a search engine to find the lessons in it. Um, I don't know that I use it exactly like how you're describing it. I think that uh,
How do you use your mind in that scenario then? Because I mean, you mentioned that you do refocus on the positive, but in scenarios where you notice that you're tending negative,
yeah,
and you would
it's
like
the
to change that,
frame.
what's your process, or what do you do?
Yeah, it's the frame. I reframe it. First, I must detach from the emotion. So in the silent flute, I give mantras and different things, and all these physical interventions with yoga to kind of unattach from the negativity. First, you must have awareness. So you got to become aware of what negativity when it's happening, and then it detach, and then or unattach, and then I don't. These words of unattachment, detachment. I haven't fully sorted them out in my mind because when I hear them, I think of like be carefree about it, or like absolve yourself of responsibility about it, or something like this. That's not what I mean. I mean literally like if you were stuck to a piece of tape, you must unstick yourself to reclaim your mobility. And a lot of times, once you become aware of the negativity, you'll catch that you're stuck to it. You got to unstick. That's what I mean when I say unattach. And so once you unstick from it, then it's about reframing the situation. And this is specifically an AZD recently a teaching, but it's so cool the way he teaches. I catch myself like already on that pulse. So yeah, reframing it. Um, what can be done. Like what was it? I don't remember if it was my girlfriend or somebody asked a question. It was like, "What am I doing wrong?" Oh yeah, that's what she said. She said, "What am I doing wrong here?" I think it was in a communication. It might have even been in a communication with me. I think it was. Uh, she's probably on the other side listening to this. She's like, "Yeah, it was with you." It was, what am I doing wrong here? And I was like, "Don't ask that question. You're just gonna find everything you're doing wrong. Like, what's the question to ask? How can I make it right?" So that's a reframe. So I don't necessarily focus, I don't think, on the positive things that I've done, unless I need like an ego boost. If I need like an emotional boost, then I can run through my day and find all the things I did right, and that I'll feel better after I do that. But if there's a problem happening, there's a problem happening. I'm not trying to like ignore that there's a problem, but how do I solve this? How is this solved? How do I resolve this? What can be done? What must be done? You're
Yeah,
mute.
that's one of the things I've noticed in your communication, Yogi Chris, that I think is very unique that I've experienced in my life, and it's very few people have done this. Is that when there is a problem, they let so I'm sure they feel emotion, but they in the communication, it's not that they express the emotion when they're attempting to resolve the problem. Most times that I've experienced in my life, traditionally, mostly like in my family, I guess, is people have expressed the emotion of versus rather than solving the problem. So in a problem, I mean, typical emotions are anger, fear, um, frustration, etc. Like just very like negatively emotionally charged feelings, and it's understandable if there's a problem or a miscommunication between two people that these types of things may come up and may arise. But rather than approaching it from a rational perspective of saying, okay, these are emotions I feel, and these emotions are simply signals to me that the quote unquote mathematics of my mind or the way I experience the world isn't aligning properly. They express these emotions to the other individual, which the other individual, depending on who they are, I mean, if they're more of if they're a younger person or feminine, etc., like more of a submissive type of person, they'll traditionally express back in an emotional response. The dominance and more masculine approaches things from a more rational response. And this is, I mean, you could
You're
argue
so
with me.
sexist. women traditionally responding emotionally. What are you saying, Akash? Get with the 21st century. That's an archaic model. Women don't fit those roles anymore. We can choose.
We can choose. You're totally right. I would, if you were,
Right.
if this is
Tell that to your girlfriend next time she's having like her menstruation and she's like getting all emotional. You can choose to not be like this. Yeah, tell that. See how.
Nonetheless, it's up to the person who has more quote unquote power or is more of the masculine or dominant role in that relationship to take it from a rational perspective. I've had it in my life that that person has gone emotional on me and just flooded emotions with me, and it's like, dude, you're supposed to be the one who has like rationality to this, like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's in some ways it's reframing a lot of that communication, and it's really cool. Like for me, genuinely, it's cool to see the way that you approach these things is very from a rational space, and the questioning, the curiosity that you have towards trying to understand where is the difference of thought, or what happened such that this went wrong. I personally see it as a very emotionally mature response, but more importantly, I think my phone just died. But more importantly, a response of thought and intellect, and as I mentioned, it's a more of an, in my opinion, enlightened masculine response. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any experiences like that, or whatnot, or how you've gotten to this place where you've kind of, the first place that you think to go to is, okay, let me think of this from a rational place versus all the emotions flooding and just giving that to another person.
Well, I don't want to feel the emotion. I don't want negative emotion. And I know, like you said, it's like a misalignment, as you said, or whatever your vocabulary for it is. There's something that I think should be happening that's not happening. And then, yeah, I mean, you said a lot, like expressing emotions, like, listen, like chimpanzees express emotions when they attack humans. Like expressing an emotion isn't a good thing necessarily. This is positive. Like expressing a negative people at focus, I hear it a lot. Like I just want to be true to my emotions. I just wanted to express my emotions and get my emotions out. It's like no. That's what chimpanzees do when they rip off your lips and your genitals. That's an emotion that they express. Like that's not valuable to me. Don't be a chimpanzee with me. And so having the proper tools of communication, it's just seeing references, for how to handle that, knowledge of cause and effects that it's just not going to solve if you get all emotional about it. And maybe in certain situations you see me being all enlightened or whatever, but there are situations that grip my emotions so much. We went over it in Silent Flute lecture last night. I gave my girlfriend these key phrases to say to me. If you think I'm being too aggressive, say these things to me and they will stop me in my track. And I will re-examine, am I in control of my voice tone right now, or am I not? If I'm not in control, then I'm becoming a chimpanzee with just advanced language. I'm just a really smart monkey. If I can't control my voice tone, I'm just a really smart monkey. And, it's like Arash said in one of his podcasts, actually. I can't believe he said this for free. He says these things. He's like, we are gods to monkeys, but we are monkeys to the gods. And that's just, so how monkey are you? How godlike are you? So just knowing what's going to work. I just want shit to work. I don't care about my emotions. It's so funny? Like, I was in this conflict with my girlfriend, and I had so many negative emotions, and like I could have just expressed them. I wanted to yell. I wanted to like just monkey out. And the thing that all that does is create more negative emotions. Like then you do something you regret, and then you feel bad about it for even longer. And it's like, if I can just tolerate this negativity for 55 minutes, I'm going to feel really, really good for the next 2 days. Like, that's not what I was thinking, but that's what ended up happening. That's almost always what happens. If you can stick it out, and then, yeah, sign of a mature person, like, man, if you can't control what comes out of your mouth, regardless of what's going on inside, then you're an animal. You're going to get what happens to animals. Animals get shot. Animals get hunted. Animals get picked on. Animals, dog-eat-dog world out there. And animals are victims to the environment. I mean, humans dominate, So Yeah, and then this is exactly what happened in the recent thing with my girlfriend. Which, I mean, there were other things. There was a thing that happened last night actually, but it just wasn't as powerful. But it was good. It was still. It's just that word mathematics, you know. And seeing it as mathematics just makes it so much easier. So being very curious about, am I wrong here? Because how many times I have become emotional. Like you said something that I was laughing a minute ago. It was like they got all emotional with me. I forget what you said. You said something that was really funny too.
Yeah, it was that the person who is quote unquote on power or supposed to be dominant started just expressing all emotional energy to me. Like I was quote unquote in the submissive or like someone who's older than me that I would expect them to be in control of their emotions and such. All of a sudden, just like gave me huge emotional communication because something went wrong, and it was like, whoa, that's kind of I think the idea that I was saying that you laughed at. Or
Yeah. I was muted when I was laughing. It was something you said, like get all emotional, like they got all emotional on me, something like that.
yeah.
But yeah, like I want to retain as much of my power as I can, and when I get emotional, it cuts my power up, starts dividing my power. So I don't access my communication the same way when I'm emotional. I value my power over expressing my emotions, and expressing my emotions creates uh, future problems. So it's just knowledge of cause and effect. And yeah, I just, you said something that it was like exactly it. Like that was it. It was like finding where is there this misunderstanding. Like I know that so many times I have become emotional in a situation only to find out that I had a misperception. And so I was literally the cause of my own problem. And it does me no good to express my emotions to the other person. Like, I'm not saying don't communicate. I'm saying communicate with the other person. Don't express emotion. Like maybe identify, I'm feeling frustrated, but that's different than like grinding your teeth and looking at them all frustrated. Like that's an expression of emotions. Your language is the characterization, the description of emotion. It's the narration. It's the communication of your emotions. I want to communicate my emotions. It's a trap. This whole thing. I don't have the exact language for it, but it's like I don't want to act out my emotions. I just want the other person to understand that I'm experiencing emotions. I want to be sure. I want to make sure that they get that I'm not neutral right now. And
and as we talked about earlier, I mean, like emotions are signals. This is something I think I've really learned from Arash, in some way, shape, or form. But that they're signals. They're not the be all end all. They're simply your body is you'll feel something within your body as a result of something that's going on in your mind, because reality, what you're seeing outside, does not match up with what you have had as expectations for reality. Right. Does that make sense? So you expected a particular path and you expected something to happen. Something that differs from what had happened is happening, and thus your body experiences these feelings, and you have these feelings in your mind, and bam, that's what an emotion is. So the way I view it now is that emotions are simply signals that your expectations your expectations for reality and reality are not aligned. It's a great way for us to understand that what are like you get a better sense of what are your expectations. And I think that's where all of the communication comes from, is like clarifying, this was what my expectations were, this is the reality that's going on. You can understand why I am having these emotions right now, because these two are not aligned when they were, in my mind, supposed to be. So that's how I've continued to reframe emotion, and you speak from a logical place, because all of that's going on while you're trying to communicate that these two things aren't the same. And so you can be like, anger, and then just go crazy on it, or whatever. It's insane.
Sometimes I lose control in the same way that sometimes I fall out of the handstand, guys. Sometimes I lose control of my balance. Sometimes I lose control of my communication, man. Like sometimes, like I'm not even the world-class handstander sometimes falls. Like Hopefully not when they're performing, hopefully not when it matters the most, but everybody falls, you know. But I see as a default in my system, by nature or nurture or whatever, that when the trying moment, when the really hostile or the really difficult moment comes, I become very, you could call it almost like apathetic. I become very objective. I become very detached. I become very stoic. I become very alien to the situation. And because if I go into it and be my human self, my emotions are going to pull me towards baboon. And so to detach from that, I become very like TV announcer. I become like a reporter of the situation. I become like, the referee. I'm no longer one of the contenders. I'm the referee or the judge. And, so I'm just passionate. I'll just be like, whoa, and the right hook knocks him down. And, oh, that was a cheap shot. He bit his ear. Like, but I'm not the other guy saying, he bit my ear, and then getting all, angry about it. I become the third person. But keep talking, because you can quickly become the third person and then just stop talking and go into a daydream about it. So you become the third person while you're talking about it. I see that's what I do.
This is something I've continued to. I was going over with my brother last night. Is stay cause, and this is something I've definitely learned from AZT. Is stay cause, particularly as a masculine figure. Stay cause always. And in the way you're saying this right now, I mean, it's causative communication. You're causing some effect in the other person as a result of communication. It's not being affected all the time and waiting for something to happen or waiting for an emotion to, I guess, I don't know, waiting for something to happen, really, waiting for communication to happen, etc. It's being proactive about it and being causative in the way that communication occurs. And I mean, this how you can stay cause in many different ways. It's that when you go about your life, you are always the person who's making things happen. And it could be from the smallest thing of you go to you go to a coffee shop. At the coffee shop, you see someone next to you and you start talking to them. As a result of that conversation, then you see someone else to your left, and I don't know, they were listening into your conversation. You include them in, so you're constantly being a source of a cause of, in that sense, communication or whatnot or whatnot. So it's always, in every single scenario, finding ways, how can you cause? And the easiest way to do it is by breathing. You could cause your own breathing. You can cause your bandhas and engaging them. And it's like in the smallest ways, we're able to continue to cause. And it's important to do, even when we're silent, when you are in a situation where you may not feel like talking or whatnot, you always have some ability to cause. And it's important to always be at cause in some way, shape, or form in your life. In all aspects. I think this is really, really important for any masculine man, is that they need to be at cause at all times. It's never that they're at effect. Even when someone is trying to affect them, they're continuing to cause the other person.
Everyone's always trying to affect you. That's all their communication is. That's it. Everyone's always trying to affect you. The fallacy of the ages is not that people are turning effect or that they're turning cause. It's that they have lied and convinced themselves that they are not cause. Every experience you're having, you are causing. You just have convinced yourself otherwise.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. The enlightened masculine accepts responsibility for every experience they have.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's important to, any experience that you do have, accept responsibility for it. Is this the type of experience you want to be having? If so, then there's no issue. If not, figure out how do you change that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm also causing every experience. Every experience I'm causing. And then, the second error of the ages might be in the illusion that what's happening outside of you is your experience inside.
Interesting. So you're
It's like,
Can
okay,
you say that in other words?
here's an example. So you missed podcasts yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're having a communication about it on offline, like our texting. So maybe I'm feeling something inside about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the situation, and as soon as I said the first error of the ages, which, guys, don't quote me on that. That's just the ages. I mean, you can't quote me on that. It's not coming from any authority other than myself. That men are viewing themselves as either cause or effect, not realizing that they are absolutely 100% always cause. Just sometimes they're ignorant to it, or they're lying to themselves that they're not. But you are. Okay, so then the second error of the ages was that what's happening outside of you is your experience inside. That's a mistake, because I didn't cause you to miss podcasts yesterday. That's what happened outside of me. I caused my inner experience of you missing podcasts yesterday.
Okay.
What happens outside of you is not what's going to happen inside of you. That's where your cause is.
Okay. Interesting. I will need to sit with that one for a bit and ponder upon it a bit longer. The experience or the example you gave, I see what you're saying. I'm trying to apply it to other examples though and see if it holds true in all areas. That's really important thing is that we do this all the time, and this is something that Arash continues to explain to us, is that you think for yourself. So just because, as you mentioned, just because you said that doesn't mean it's all like, oh, this is the holy text right here. Yogi Chris said it, like, bam, all end all be all. Like, you take the datum that someone has given you, you run it through all of the programs of your life and see, does this datum make sense? Does it work? Does it flow through? If it does, then you can adopt it as your own. If not, you just toss it to the side, and that's that. So
I highly recommend that everybody adopt this as truth, what I just said. Don't toss aside what I just said. All right, so wrapping it up, let's see. Do we have any no comments on Facebook? We got people that have viewed this whole pot. 3 people have viewed this whole thing on Facebook. For 40 minutes we've been going. No questions or comments. Instagram, no questions or comments. People just watching. Is it entertaining, or let us hear your minds. What are your thoughts about what you've been witnessing? Otherwise, we're just going to kind of wrap it up. I'll hand it over to Akash for any closing words.
Yeah, I guess closing statements on my end are I've been continuing to put out some YouTube videos, so be aware of that. Again, it's around communication, some of the communication things that I've been learning from Arash under mentorship, as well as mindsets, yoga, so postures, poses. I'm getting a bit more into some of the standing series of the primary series itself. We've gone through breath, Drishtis and Bandhas thus far. And then lastly, stay on the lookout for our yoga hikes. As the weather gets warmer here, we are going on them at sunrise. So beware of them, check them out. If you're interested, DM me, reach out to me in any way, shape, or form. You have my contact information. Yogi Chris, I turn it back over to you.
Yeah, man. It's really exciting what's happening in the silent flute. We've been going over the master key system, which is the stair-step method, law of attraction. And we're about halfway through chapter 1, which is really the foundation. I mean, once you get through chapter 1, I think you could just read the whole book and comprehend a little easier. But from the very beginning, I give you a bunch of the alchemy, the ancient hermetic principles of like laws of vibration, the law of mentality, the law of rhythm, like how to really get a grasp on these things mentally so that you see how they apply to this ancient wisdom. And, it will transform your life. I believe it's been transforming my life as I reread and restudy the book. And as I talk about it, it gets better and everybody gives great feedback about it. So I highly recommend the Silent Flute. You catch all the recordings when you join. You get the whole archive. It's not like other programs where you only get the lectures during the month that you're in it. You get the whole archive of lectures, plus you get the book notes. You get the book notes on all the lectures, so you don't even have to watch the lectures. You can just read the 100-page book and really upload a lot of that content fast. And, so I highly recommend it for everybody, of course. But do a clarity call to make sure that it's a fit for both of us. So don't feel like you have to commit before knowing if I'm the right teacher for you. Just send a message. The link is below. Or go to ninthlim.com and you'll find all the information about silent flute. And cool. So we do this every Saturday and Sunday at noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so this is Sunday. So we'll see you all next week. And thank you all for tuning in to Enlightened Masculinity.